Today I'm attempting to build, honestly, the most challenging PC that I've ever done before. We got this obnoxiously clean NanoQ S ITX small form factor case, several products from Corsair, and a whole lot of performance for this tiny little build. Since we recently just hit 1 million subscribers on YouTube, I'm hosting a LAN party here at the ZTT HQ, and this new ITX build is gonna be my portable PC of choice. I'll show you exactly all the parts inside of here and how the build process went. I'll give you a little sneak peek about how our 1 million celebration LAN party went, and we are definitely gonna be benchmarking the performance of this build. But first, I gotta go attempt to even build this PC over on my Twitch live stream. Now, I knew going into this stream with this case and parts list that this was gonna be a complicated build, so I recruited a little bit of help. Throughout the entire process, I had the owner of Thorzone, who manufactures this case, in the chat, and he answered all the questions I had and walked me through step by step. It actually ended up being a really fun night, and I don't think we've ever maintained over 1,000 concurrent viewers on Twitch like we did. We got the PC successfully built up at the end of the day and after a couple of beers, but let's talk about what's inside the PC before we get to the finished product. Starting with the CPU, I went with the Ryzen 7 9700X, and I surprisingly love this choice for a small form factor build. If it were up to me, I definitely would have gone with the 7800X 3D or even the 9800X 3D, since I'm pretty sure that will be available by the time this video goes live. But since the 7800X 3D wasn't in stock, I settled on this one. In terms of price to performance value, I'd actually consider the 7700X to be better because it's much cheaper and only a little bit slower, but since the 9700X has better efficiency and it's easier to cool, that's actually perfect for an ITX small form factor build. To cool the 9700X, I did install this Asetek Gen 7 AIO that came with the case, but I wouldn't say that's 100% required since the 9700X is just so efficient. What's also going to be efficient is this quick pre-roll ad for our sponsor, Corsair, and specifically their brand new K70 Pro TKL high performance Hall effect gaming keyboard. Now, as someone that's recently been jumping into the peripheral game and even dabbling with custom boards and switches, it's honestly great to see big brands like Corsair try to bridge that gap between big company and customs. The K70 Pro TKL checks all of the boxes, especially if you care about speed and not getting owned by the Black Ops 6 Dolphin divers. It's got rapid fire pressure sensitive switches. These are pre-lubed Corsair MGX hyperdrive magnetic switches, and don't forget about those Hall effect sensors as well. Each key has an adjustable actuation point, and with the 8K polling rate, it's gonna be hard to beat this one. Take a look on YouTube, and even the peripheral gods are talking highly about this keyboard. You can check out the K70 Pro TKL with the link down in the description and in the pinned comment, and big thanks again to Corsair for sponsoring today's video. Alright, so getting back to the build, the motherboard I used is the ASRock B650i Lightning Wi-Fi. This has some solid features, but to be honest, I think this was just the cheapest B650 ITX board at the time of purchasing, so that's why I went with it. Next up, we got some Corsair products, and some of these were kindly sent over from Corsair, but I did actually have to swap one of these out at the very last second. For the SSD, I told Corsair that this build could potentially be my new daily driver build, so I requested a 4TB drive, and they certainly delivered. This is the MP600 Elite 4TB Gen 4 NVMe, and it's rocking some seriously fast read and write speeds. 4TB is definitely a bit overkill, but I am actually the type of person that stores a lot of files, and especially games, on my daily driver PC, so it's much appreciated. They also sent out the RAM, and for this one, I specifically requested any 64GB kit that they could send. This is the Corsair Vengeance DDR5 2x32GB 6400MHz kit with a CL rating of 32. This is literally exactly what I needed because it's got the pure performance that I need without anything extra like RGB. I don't need anything flashy inside this tiny little build where you can barely see what's inside of it, so it's a perfect choice. And finally, for the power supply, I did actually specifically request the SF1000L since this case does say that it'll fit, but my Thorzone rep said that if I went with the L version, I wouldn't be able to fit in the AIO that they sent me. They recommended that I go with an SF750 instead, so thankfully I could overnight that from Amazon, and it arrived like 10 minutes before the live stream started. Both of these power supplies are definitely top tier choices, and a lot of SFF builders go with them, so I'll have to find a use for this SF1000L for a future build, no doubt. But yeah, either way, big thanks to Corsair for sending out this little trio of parts, very much appreciated. Next up, we have the graphics card, and we actually recorded a lot of footage for the PNY XLR RTX 4080 Super, but just like the power supply, I was told that this probably wouldn't be a great idea either, so I downsized to an MSI RTX 4070 Ti Super since that was the next highest end GPU that we had in the studio. This bumped us down from a huge 3-fan monstrosity to a much more manageable 2-fan design, and for a small form factor build, this makes things a whole lot easier. So finally, the last part we have is of course the case, and again, big shout out to the Thorzone NanoQ. I actually still don't know how to pronounce this. I was saying NanoQ the entire stream, but got told towards the end that it's NanoQ. At least that's what I think they meant. No matter how you say the name, this is seriously an amazing amazing case. And not to plagiarize their website, but it's literally a compact, breathtaking, powerful, next-gen SFF PC case. If you search for this on YouTube, you'll see highly reviewed videos from the exact ITX builders that you'd expect, such as Devin Johnson and Optimum. Everyone loves this case, and it's honestly just a work of art. Now, certainly, it's expensive, and I get that, but you do have a lot of customizability with the size of the case. This is the smaller 11-liter version, as well as the type of front panel, colors, handles, AIO, etc. The exact config that I got is the NanoQ S 11-liter with a carbon color, the walnut front, and the Asetek Gen 7 AIO. What's really cool is that there's no removable side panels here, and the entire outer shell is just all one piece, so you can slide out the internals all in one unit. There's actually a lot of engineering inside this little case, and it's a sandwich design, so the GPU is on one side and the motherboard is on the other. You can adjust this back and forth depending on if you need more room for a thicker GPU or more room for a bigger CPU cooler. As with any ITX build, if you're considering this case, definitely go to their website and check out all of the different dimensions and part compatibility, because that's exactly what I didn't do and then got told by my rep that I made some part selection errors. But yeah, during the stream, while talking to a ton of people and drinking some beers, the actual build process went smoother than I thought. Again, I did have a very bougie step-by-step guidance from the owner of the company, but there wasn't any one specific part that I actually struggled with, and it was relatively straightforward. If you already have experience of building a PC inside a tiny case, then there really isn't anything extra difficult in here. But if you've only ever built a full-size desktop PC, then doing your first small form factor build will definitely be a challenge. All in all, here's what the final parts list is looking like, and obviously with this one, I'm not trying to achieve any record-breaking price to performance numbers or anything like that. We have a piece of art case, some high-end and expensive Corsair components, a not great valued CPU, and an NVIDIA GPU. This was meant to be more of a fun build and potentially my next daily driver PC, but the main reason I wanted it was for a LAN party here at the ZTT HQ. I've made some YouTube shorts about this already, but one of the ways we're celebrating hitting 1 million subscribers is a LAN party for the 6 of us here in the office. Everyone brought their own PCs from home, and instead of lugging my huge 7900 XTX build, I wanted to go with a tiny portable build, so that was the main inspiration. I actually didn't anticipate how satisfying it would be to put this build next to my wife's Fractal Terra build as well. We sat next to each other during the LAN party, and I could stare at these two little small form factor builds side by side for hours. It's actually kind of funny because both of our GPUs were facing each other, so they were competing against each other for fresh air, but thankfully we didn't have any issues. Now during the LAN party, we originally had a sizable game list, but only managed to play 3 games the entire time that we were here. We first played Halo Infinite and did some big team battles so that we could all play on the same team, and we actually crushed the competition and won close to every game that we played. After that, we tried Pummel Party, and this is a Mario Party style of game, but for PC. I had no idea that this game would be so gory, funny, and just entertaining. We ended up playing this one for an over 3-hour session, and it was awesome. After that, we got a couple of games of Black Ops 6 in, and then we called it a day. Overall, this build performed very well, and I didn't have a single issue with temperatures, frame rates, or anything during the entire LAN party. It played everything I wanted to in 1440p with some pretty high settings, but I obviously wasn't super focused on the exact FPS that I was getting during the LAN. Thankfully, Sam did do a full benchmarking run, so here are the results for that. Almost every game is at that 1440p ultra level mark, and honestly, that's not a huge surprise with a 9700X and a 4070 Ti Super. He even did a Cinebench 2024 stress test for both the CPU and GPU, and the 9700X only got up to 68 degrees, which is absolutely crazy. The 4070 Ti Super also only got up to 76 degrees. Both of those numbers are unreal, so we're definitely getting all the cooling that we need with this case, cooling, and AIO setup. Speaking of which, I haven't even mentioned that our fan situation is a bit funky, but it's actually what was recommended to me. There's no cooling in the front or bottom, and the only fans in this build other than the GPU and the power supply are up at the top of the radiator. I used 2 slim 120s because everything is so tight in here, and they're actually in the pull position, which goes against everything that I know about cooling. Traditionally, you want them to be exhausting hot air up and through the radiator out of the top of the case, specifically because hot air rises and dust settles, but this time we have them pulling air through the radiator from top to bottom. This isn't 100% ideal when it comes to cooling, but since the backside of fans always have a mini grill here, we can use this to protect the bundle of cables from hitting those fan blades. As you can see, I didn't actually properly cable manage this, so it was definitely needed. If you do have a fan grill, then that would obviously work much better. But as we saw from the CPU and GPU temperatures, there's absolutely nothing wrong with how we have this set up. We might just accumulate a little bit of extra dust, so I'll have to stay on top of that. But yeah, overall, this was a super fun project, and I'm excited to keep using this build more and more. We'll have a full benchmarking run video over on the ZTT Extras YouTube channel if you want to see a bit more about the performance and cooling. Also, don't forget that Black Friday is coming up, and we're going to be selling some crazy priced PCs over on zttbuilds.com/drops for our November number drop. And finally, feel free to click the video that's on the screen now if you're looking for a different way to put together a small form factor build but for a much cheaper price.